exist on a continuum. Welcome to this edition of Hope Healthy Living. I'm Hope. My co-host is not here with me. She is enjoying summer, guys. Today, I am going to tell you a little bit about my own experience dealing with mental health and mental well-being. This is the first in a series of videos we are going to be producing throughout summer. The goal is to reflect based on my own experience, and if it can help another person, I would have achieved that goal. So let's get started. If you have not watched the last video, I talked a little bit about an anecdote, and I'm going to repeat it because it's going to be the topic of this video. We are going to use 3 basic elements of critical thinking to reflect on this anecdote. So it will be description, analysis, and evaluation. Now, let's talk about the anecdote. I was at home. This was around maybe 2017, 2018, and my son watched a video in school, and he came home and said, "Mom, we watched a video in school and the lady in the video looked just like you. She was at home taking care of kids. She didn't seem to have any control of her life. She looked sad, maybe depressed." And he said, "Mom, are you depressed?" Now, imagine he was very honest and innocent, right? This is a question a child will ask his mom. Even though when I grew up, when we were growing up, we didn't ask that type of question. But this is the reality in today's world. So, I'm giving you this background information now just to help you see the context. So I was at home. I had finished, my nursing education. I had finished the LPN, the RN, and I didn't have a career. I was at home, and we're going to go into more about what was happening in my life when we analyzed it. Don't go away. Welcome back, guys. So, as I said, this is going to be a very reflective theme video. So now we're going to analyze the context. As many immigrants, settling in a new country can be met with a lot of challenges. And I had my share of challenges. So I'm at home taking care of kids. Of course, I had basic necessities, but I wasn't happy. I didn't have a career, and I wanted a career. As life goes, it wasn't happening for me for various reasons. I was still trying to figure out, how to get that career as an immigrant. So when my son came home and talked about the video, he may have noticed that Mom wasn't happy. Maybe, spending your day taking care of kids, cooking, cleaning, going to doctor's appointment, school's appointment. It can be overwhelmed when you have other issues to deal with. Now, if you imagine a child coming to you and said, "Mom, are you well?" A lot of time for us, immigrant, we always answer, "No, I'm fine," or "Not feeling very well today, but I'll be fine." Because we're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be able to handle the stress, of living abroad. We're supposed to be able to say, we have this good life. Everything is smooth sailing. People don't expect to talk about failures, people don't expect you to talk about shortcomings, you know. You have to portray that vision of everything is beautiful, just the way you see on pictures, right? When we send them back home. And so I was that person. When the kids were not at home, I would spend my day cooking, cleaning, of course, and in between, I would cry. I cry a lot because I wasn't happy. And when I pick up the kids from school, I will always have, you know, the happy mom's face. And of course, in the community, you maintain that happy face, and everybody thinks, you know, you are able to manage everything, and it's your choice to be at home. And so, and because, of course, you have to raise your children, but it wasn't my choice to be at home. It was just because I was going through some difficulties in relation to my integration. So definitely it was a difficult time where I went into deep sadness, and I didn't want to talk about it to anybody, because first of all, it would have been for me to admit my shortcomings, to admit my failure, to admit, you know, that I wasn't a happy person. And who doesn't want to be happy? People expect you to be happy all the time. And so it wasn't just the little everyday stress. It was really about, why me? Why should I keep going? How do you get out of a hole, you know, a deep hole? And so you become this very sad, withdrawn person. And I was that person. Completely withdrawn, will always have this other personalities, right? When I went out in public, I tried to show the happy face, and as soon as I got home, it was like lifting a veil, and then I'll go into this sadness. But I did it silently. I didn't really complain, in the sense that for me, it was everything that was going on was my fault, and I needed to deal with it myself. I didn't think I needed to ask for help. Now, because we're analyzing this particular situation, and I can imagine it happens to so many, you know, people, especially in the diaspora community. I told my son I was okay. Even my husband thought I was fine, you know, because I really didn't complain, in the sense that I don't like how I feel, you know. Of course, it's difficult to say I don't like how I feel. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of, I don't know, I don't want to say energy, but courage. Because a lot of time, you know, we don't want to talk about mental health, mental issues. We don't want to talk about it. It seems like it's taboo, right? So I didn't want to say I don't feel right. Of course, I have coping, you know, mechanism. We all do. But at one point, when you have so many unresolved issues, as I was dealing with, which was, for me, was the fact that I was at home and it wasn't my choice. So I think that's when, even with all the coping mechanism that I had, you know, socially, I was still very engaged. I'll take the kids out, you know, for all social functions. But as an individual, I didn't feel like I was happy, you know. My life didn't have a lot of, you know, sense. It didn't make sense to me. And though I was surrounded by people who could have helped me, but the fact that I kept it to myself only made the matter worse. And that's why I'm sharing this video with you. You might not be the person going through a difficult situation, but you might know someone who's going through it. And if you can share this video with the person, it would help, because I didn't think I could, talk about my issue. And we know, in our communities, as an immigrant, you really don't want to talk about things that are sensitive. And because of that, you also don't seek help. It takes a lot of courage. And now I'm going to reveal to you a little bit how my day went when we come back. Okay guys, welcome back. As I was saying, when I try to analyze the context in which my son asked, "Mom, are you depressed?" Now, in hindsight, right, looking back, I can say, obviously, he saw that mommy wasn't well, right? Though I have never received a mental health diagnosis, and as you can imagine, just because I have never received a mental health diagnosis doesn't mean that, I cannot tell you how sad and deep and messed up and, just how terrible I felt. And I know that going from the green zone to yellow to red, it takes a long time for some people. But just imagine if my son hadn't mentioned even the word. Maybe I wouldn't have seen the situation the way it was, or how bad I was, because what I did seems very normal to me. I would spend my day after the kids were in school. I had 2 children, right? My co-host and my 15 years old. So I would spend the day cooking, cleaning, but I will also go into my bedroom. I have 2 suitcases of just documents I was trying to deal with. And so this is just a sample. I don't want to scare you, but I want this video to be honest and very reflective in a way that it can help another person, because now I can laugh about it. But a few years ago, I cry. I will open folders after folders just like this. I don't know if you can see, just lifting all these envelopes and reading them, it didn't make sense to me, but I would spend my day just doing that. Of course, in that situation, you're really not thinking straight, right? Doing the same thing every day, just like that, just going through documents. And this was just one folder, and then I will pick the second one, just trying to make sense of it all, and I will go through. It didn't matter if it was a bill, a paperwork from an administration. It didn't matter if it was a mail. I just spent my day spiraling out of control because my mind was just on the document. And I wasn't very happy, to put it mildly, because if you do that, you start believing that something is not right. But because you're scared, you're nervous, you don't want to say, I don't feel right. You don't want to have that label of, being a failure. So I swallow everything, My mind would think about the situation, but I would say, no, I can talk about it, and I would just swallow it. And doing that over a couple of years, it really drained my energy. It took everything out of me. It took the spark out of my eyes. You know, my soul, my heart bled, and there was just no way I could be happy. Also, I thought, right? And so I don't want that to happen to another person, because today, looking back, I just can't imagine how I was able to get out of that situation. And that's why sharing this story with you today, it's really to let you know, if you are in that situation, that you are not alone. You know, we're talking a lot about mental health and mental well-being because of this pandemic, right? In a way, many people are having these challenges for the first time. But for some of us, it's been ongoing. You know, I can look back 5 or 6 years ago. I was in a mental health pandemic of my own, dealing with these challenges silently can be overwhelming for anybody. Yes, anybody. And now we are going to talk about, you know, evaluating the situation. So when my son said, "Mom, this lady looks just like you, and she looks sad, she doesn't have any control of her life," so I want to take a moment and tell you a little bit how I felt after that and any action that I took. So guys, when I'm evaluating this situation, today I can see how, you know, just telling my son, "No, Mom, is fine, everything is fine." Of course, it was reassuring for my son, right? But for me, the fact that I didn't really consider the whole, you know, conversation as being, you know, relevant to what was going on in my life at that time, it was maybe a mistake. And again, like I said, it's because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking taboo, I'm thinking failure, and I'm thinking nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear your story. Nobody cares. And so I didn't take any action at that time. But it took me a couple of years. You know, it was really progressive that I began to realize that I really needed to talk to someone. Now, when I say talk to someone, it doesn't always mean to a therapist. If you cannot afford a therapist, you can talk to someone in your community if you're going through something like this. Now, I can say that, but in hindsight, right? Because it took me a while to realize that I needed to talk to someone. And that's one of the reasons why I'm sharing this video, because when I finally did, it changed my life. It changed my mindset. When I finally talked to someone, it wasn't in a hospital. It was people. There are people around you, people who care. But because a lot of time when you are in this stressful situation, your life becomes this dump of anger, sadness, I mean, nothing good, right? And you are just simmering into this rage. You're mad at yourself. You can be mad at your kids. You can be mad at your husband. You become frustrated, right? Everything frustrates you, and you blame everybody. Though, like I said, in my situation, a lot of time I blame myself, but I would still feel frustrated because it was projecting, you know, what I was feeling inside. Though I didn't say, you know, I didn't say I'm not happy. I didn't say that, because for us, especially immigrant I mean, when you have, you know, basic needs, you are very grateful. You always appreciate what you have. And so it's hard to complain, you know. More often than not, you know, we like to keep it cool, right? You don't want people to think that you're ungrateful, so you don't complain. So it was a difficult time because I had to suffer, but in silence, even though there were people around me, you know, my loved one, my family, my friends, you know, people who could help. But because you're not telling them what is going on, you are a person that they, you know, they think there's nothing they can do, right? Because you're not saying, I'm not well. So it's very important for you, if you're going through a situation like this, to be able to open up. And today, you know, when I'm evaluating this situation, this is the lesson I get out of that conversation, right? You have to open up. You have to listen, you know, if even a child comes to you and tells you something about, you know, your life. This was my child telling me something after watching a video in school. But in a lot of families, right, it can be mom and dad arguing all the time, and a child can come and say, you guys are always arguing. So you have to listen, because when a child says that, it's because he or she noticed something, knows that something is not right with maybe their living situation, maybe with mom, maybe with dad. And this is how we can start healing, you know, some of the mental illnesses we have. Because for me, even though I have never been diagnosed with a mental health, I strongly believe that if I had continued just spending my days, you know, going through documents, checking my failures, I forgot to show you. This was one of the things that kept me all day, and I will go through just looking, you know, at this picture on the wall. And I wasn't happy when I saw this, because for me, I was at home and I was supposed to be somebody else. So I wasn't happy. And who would? I don't know. Of course, raising children was something I, as a mother, I love doing. But because I have this other problem, it was actually preventing me from enjoying motherhood. It was preventing me from appreciating the little moment I have with my kids. So even when I went to the park, to the pond, and we'll be skidding rocks, but my mind was somewhere else. And that's not a good place to be as a mom. You want to be present, not just for your kids, but you want to be present for yourself. You want to exist. And it felt like I was existing, but in a vacuum. So I wasn't really there. And that's very sad, thinking about it now. And that's why I'm sharing this story, because I don't want this situation to happen to another person. I want you to know that a lot of time, the people who can help you are there around you, but you have to be willing to share. So, and now another takeaway of this situation is that don't be afraid to evaluate your life, right? A lot of time we get into this routine of, you know, maybe we have a job, we have kids, and then we're not really thinking about, you know, if we are happy, or if not, what is wrong with us. So it was the same thing for me. For many years, I really didn't have that mind of evaluating my life. So this is something that I learned from, that conversation with my son, and the consequences of me not opening up sooner. So, but today I'm a different person, because just like I'm doing this video now, it's actually a routine for me to get up in the morning and evaluate my life and reflect about, a conversation. Now, I really take steps to say, this action that I am taking, why am I taking it? Or if I took it, could I have done it differently? So you have to ask these questions. And only when you do that, you have that sense of having some control of your life. And I'm happy to be able to do that. Now, you might be thinking, this video, why are you doing it now if you feel better? Of course, when it comes to mental health, it's just as it takes a long time to get to, from green to yellow to red, it also takes time to go from maybe red to yellow and to green. So for me, doing this video is also a therapy, right? It's cathartic for me. So it's a healing moment for me. And knowing that I'm doing this video to impact another person, it's even better. So if you know somebody who's going through a difficult time, share this video with them. And my hope is that this is the beginning of a conversation. So another thing I want to mention about the takeaway of my conversation with my son is that we have to listen. A lot of time we don't listen to each other. And this is something that I learned from that conversation, because after that, I think I'm a better person now because I listen more. It doesn't mean that I always agree with my children, but I listen. I try my best to listen. And knowing that, I may not see eye to eye with my son, or my daughter, or my husband, right? And because the reason why we're doing this is so that, we prevent this escalation of crisis that we have seen in our community, right? When you listen, whether it's your kids or your partner, you're going to find solution. You're going to find compromise. You're going to deal with your struggle before it gets to that point, which I call critical point, right? I never got there, but I can imagine myself if I didn't take some action, just having my life spiral out of control, because you let the anger, fester your relationship. You let your anger spill into your daily life. You get mad at people around you without the people even knowing why you're so mad. So we have to listen and communicate more every day. And that's how we begin to heal. Now, in my next video, I would like to give you 10 different things that I did to get out of this situation, where now I can maybe look back and laugh at some of the things that actually made me cry just a few years ago. And thank you for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe if you like it. And if you think there's something that we didn't cover in this video, let us know in the comment down below. Like I said, this is part 1 of this mental health, mental well-being video, and the second part would be the 10 steps that I took to become a better person. So stay tuned.